Well, greetings, Mindcrafters, and welcome to another exciting Mindcraft discussion on this glorious Vermont day on my back deck. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am so super elated to kind of walk back here. I know a lot of you, quite a few of you have mentioned very positive things about liking the episodes that I do out in the woods, sort of on location, as they say, and also out with the goats. We're currently napping. Yeah, they're taking a little siesta. Anyway, so I'm on my back deck. We are back in the woods, just moving a little slowly as my foot continues to heal. And so out on the back deck today, and really what I'd like to talk about today, to sort of ease back into these on-location episodes, is I'd like to talk about soul hole filling. Soul hole filling, particularly people-pleasing, which is a close cousin to rescuing, not exactly the same, but very, very similar, very codependent, very ego-driven. And so these behaviors are so super common. And I guess what inspired me, there's probably something deeper than inspired me. I listen to podcasts all the time, and that'll come to me maybe later. But I just did a reel for the stress outlet I do for young adults, and I always say, and anyone else who'd like to join us, because they're often geared to young adults, but they can work for anybody. But anyway, I did a short one, so they're 90 seconds, right? It's not that easy to get something done in 90 seconds, but you kind of learn. So anyway, I thought, wow, I haven't really talked about the codependency stuff for a long time now, years, really. And so it's so super common. It's so common, and it's important to realize really where it's coming from, because oftentimes people get this people please, they're doing lots and lots of good things for other people, and that can be just because your mind fully giving, you're being a good person, but really you got to pay attention to that, because it can really sneak under the radar, because many people get their good feels from there, because people-pleasing comes from childhood injury most often. And we sort of transfer from human beings to human doings, because we get our our self-esteem and our good feels from all that external approval, which of course has a half-life, because that's all ego-driven, from the ego's need to feel important and to feel good. And when we satisfy the ego, there is a definite dope fix. It feels good in that moment, or we wouldn't continue to do it, right? But obviously, in the long term, it's not any good, because those quick fixes where we feel quote unquote good about ourselves are very fleeting, because they're inauthentic. So that people pleasing thing is, obviously the ego's need to search externally for approval and to feel important and have the kudos and all that stuff. So really what we're doing is, trying to fill ourselves up with what's missing in there. There's been some injury, some wounds, usually from childhood. And we're trying to fill those up, just like we would with alcohol or shopping or unhealthy sex or whatever. It's just another way to self-medicate, only it's codependency instead of, a substance. And so I wanted to talk about that. And also rescuing is a little different, but that great white hope complex of saving people and fixing people and all that stuff isn't different. Often more complicated, but not different. And there's a lot of blending of self there, which is also codependency. When we don't know where we end and somebody else begins in a relationship, that almost defines codependency. It's more to it than that, obviously. But the thing is, I really wanted to hone in on the people pleasing, just because it's so common. Because we can think and believe that we're running around doing all these things because we're good people, and we are good people. But a lot of times, people get that confused with authentic generosity. It's just not the same. All right, so it comes down to two types of giving, right? There's mindful giving and mindless giving. So people pleasing and rescuing and all the various types of codependent behaviors are mindless giving. Mindless giving. They're ego-driven, and they're about the ego's need to satiate itself. So often, because of this, often those, after we've run ourselves in the ground and been the one to take everybody's kids everywhere, been the one to do, the cleaning up at the office or the house over and over and over again, like the dorm or whatever, and with that, over and over, just kind of expected, taking on all the extra tasks, being that one little league mom or dad to have everybody's kids in your car, taking on all of it, and then eventually, and there can be a mix. There's like good person mixed with unhealthy behavior of needing to get our good feels that way. And so typically what happens with the people-pleasing shtick is it leads to anger, and this can all be quiet. This is all quiet because we want to get those good feels, right? So we don't say it because we want to make sure that, we're getting all the, the important feelings, all the everything, and oh, thank goodness we can count on her. She's baked brownies for the last 18 straight PTO meetings, thank goodness, and we're after all that stuff. And what happens is there's a slow burn underneath of anger sometimes, but again, we don't usually express it. Resentment, which is the wish I didn't do any of this because it's not for the right reasons, because underneath it all, that person isn't feeling appreciated. 1 or 2, 3 people might say thank you to you, but really they're just thrilled that you're keeping up with it because they don't have to, right? And so there might be a few authentic thank yous, but mostly you're feeling like a dish rag, afterwards. It's kind of, what it's kind of like because that dope fix feels good in the beginning. Because we buy into all that self-importance. The ego buys right into that hook, line, and sinker. Oh, if it weren't for me, they wouldn't have had brownies. If it weren't for me, the kids couldn't, the other 5 kids couldn't get to the Little League game. And to do that once in a while is great. To be that person all the time, that's about something else. It's about something else. And so it reduces us to human doings versus human beings because it's filling... it's filling a need, it's trying to medicate a psychological wound, really, is what we're talking about. Same thing with rescuing. Okay, where's I going with that? All right, so next, okay, so mindless giving, it can bring on anger, resentment, and even depression, actually, because the person's feeling unappreciated, feeling like a doormat. And again, we teach people how to treat us. So we're actually teaching people to treat us like a doormat and take advantage of us because that's what we're putting out there. We're putting out there, let me do it all. So I'll feel good about myself. Just let me do it all. And so they're going to let you for sure. And that usually just leads down a spiral down because it just isn't healthy. Okay, so that's mindless giving. And you're feeling depleted. You're feeling, like I said, taken advantage of eventually. Maybe not in the beginning, but eventually. Keep it up long enough, you will. And then there's mindful giving, which is authentic. It's authentic because the authentic person, when they're coming from an authentic place and they're giving, they're already feeling whole and complete and not looking for they're not looking for that ego fix of self-importance. The authentic person doesn't need approval. Now, does it still feel good when they say, hey, that was really nice of you to bake the brownies, which you did once or maybe twice in a full year? And of course it feels good. It's nice. You're glad they appreciated it, but we don't go looking for it. We're not actively seeking it. It's nice to hear it, but we're not actively seeking it. And mindful giving it's not like the dope fix. And it can be tough to tell the difference in the beginning because if you're in the early stages of people pleasing, that dope fix feels good and you maybe not know the difference. You'll know when you keep it up. The mindful giver knows the difference because it's just a calm, long-lasting feel-good. It's kind of like if your very best friend in the entire world calls at 3 o'clock in the morning because she's really had some major something happen in her life, and you know that she would never abuse that, she would never do it. So it was a really good thing you answered the phone, as she would do for you, and you stayed up with her, and the next day you're not really that tired. You might be a little physically tired, but you're answering your inner voice of, this is so important right now that I have to do it. And that also can be a blended thing when people, because that was like a once, she wouldn't usually, so you knew it was huge. And the codependents can get that confused too, because that's the rescuer hat. When she or he or they or whoever gets roped into that on a regular basis, that's not authentic. That's the need. That's the great white hope savior complex, not the same. And the thing is, you know by how you feel. The mindful giver feels whole and complete and doesn't need it and goes on her way. Glad she could help. The mindless giver, like I said, is getting that super dope fix in the beginning, which is also reinforcing itself, right? Because the ego likes to be satisfied. So basically, pay attention to how you feel. So it doesn't mean to not do good things for people. Obviously, it's important to go out of our way for people. Very, very important. And I personally do the best I can to, to do good things and be of service whenever I can and things like that. You just got to really be aware of the motivation. Continue to do good things for people and just be aware of how you feel, because we are human beings, not human doings. And if you're getting your self-esteem, feel-good stuff out of it, that's not healthy, right? The authentics just keep rolling. Calm, long-lasting, kind of inner charge. Okay, so that's it. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the beautiful northern Vermont with my marigolds that survive somehow, because I'm not that great with plants. Usually by September, everything's totally dead. Anyway, have a mindful day.